How wild is the US housing market right now? Well, over half of the houses that have been listed since April have gone pending in less than a week. And that's just one statistic. In all honesty, you can pick pretty much any housing statistic that you want, and I can almost guarantee you that it's at an all-time record. Home prices, record high. Inventory, record low. Percentage of homes selling above asking price, record high. Average time on the market, record low. But the question is, how long will this incredibly hot housing market last? And will housing prices keep going up, or is there an imminent housing crash lurking around the corner? Well, in this video, we're gonna cover 5 reasons why this real estate market is stronger than any real estate market before it, and why there is not an imminent crash on the horizon. So make sure you tune in until the end, because I'm gonna be dropping some serious knowledge. As with any investment on this planet, there is a bull case and then there is a bear case, and the housing market is no exception. Here is an article from The Atlantic that's building a case as to why you should wait out the wild housing market. And here is an article in Bloomberg Businessweek stating that yes, real estate prices are high, but it's far from a bubble. And lastly, here's an article from the OC Register stating that online searches for the word housing crash are up more than 250% from March of 2020. My point is that the housing market is getting more attention than ever before. Now, many people think that prices will continue to rise, and others think that there is an imminent crash waiting to happen. Well, in this video, we're gonna cover 5 reasons why the housing market will not crash. But before we do that, if you could do me a quick favor and hit that like and subscribe button, it would be greatly appreciated. I've got over 60 videos that are very similar to this one that are designed to increase your financial knowledge and your financial future. So if you haven't already, check them out and make sure you subscribe to my channel. To start off, I want to make one thing clear. This housing market that we are in today is substantially different to the housing market in the mid to late 2000s. Now, I regularly hear people comparing this housing market that we're in today to the housing market of 15 years ago, but the two markets couldn't be more different. Back in the mid-2000s, there was a systematic dismantling of financial regulations, and because of that, the real estate market rallied, but it rallied for all of the wrong reasons. You see, back in the mid-2000s, lenders were handing out money left and right without verifying the borrower's financial condition and their financial health. Literally, people were able to bluff their way into mortgages with a no-doc or low-doc loan. Now, without getting into too much detail, this isn't happening any longer. Lenders have adopted much more stringent lending standards, so before anyone says today's real estate market is reminiscent of 15 years ago, it's really not. Yes, today's real estate market is red hot, but today's real estate market is driven by completely different factors from the one that started the global financial crisis 15 years ago. But let's jump into the 5 reasons that this real estate market will not crash. The first reason that the housing market won't crash is that interest rates remain low and are expected to stay that way for the foreseeable future. Now, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has suggested that interest rates will rise at some point, but he's made it clear that any increase in interest rates will be gradual. To my knowledge, he's called for 2 interest rate hikes by 2023, but just suggesting that there will be interest rate hikes isn't enough to derail the housing market. Until we know the timing of these interest rate hikes, and until we know the extent of these interest rate hikes, it's hard to say that interest rates will derail the real estate market and cause it to crash. According to the Mortgage Bankers Association, the average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is predicted to rise from 3.1% this quarter to 3.5% at the end of 2021 and 4.2% at the end of 2022. Now, I'm not saying that rising interest rates won't have an impact on the real estate market. They definitely will. But to assume that rising interest rates will cause a crash is an over-exaggeration, in my opinion. The second reason that a housing crash is not imminent is because home loans issued today do not carry adjustable rates. Now, according to Bloomberg, only about 0.1% of mortgage loans issued this year carry adjustable rates, compared with about 60% in the bubble years, so homeowners today won't be shaken out of their homes by rising rates. For those of you that don't know, during the last housing crash around 2008, most people had adjustable rate mortgages. That means that your monthly mortgage payment fluctuated depending on interest rates, hence the word adjustable. When interest rates increased during the last housing bubble, so did people's monthly mortgage payment. And when the payments became unaffordable, many people's homes went into foreclosure, and this was one of the main drivers of the last crash. Well, this time things are a little bit different because only 0.1% of mortgage loans issued carry adjustable rates. That means if interest rates do increase, which they eventually will, your monthly payment will not. And that's a key difference between this housing market and the last one, and that's another reason that this housing market won't crash anytime soon. I read a really interesting article in Slate magazine a couple of weeks ago talking about how investment firms and wealthy Americans are buying more rental properties and vacation homes than ever before. And ladies and gentlemen, the fact that wealthy Americans and investment firms are snagging up more rental properties and vacation properties that they can use as short-term rentals is another reason that the real estate market won't crash anytime soon. According to this article in Slate magazine, corporate investors snapped up 15% of all U.S. homes for sale in the first quarter of this year. And institutional investors are very different from you and I. Now, they have hundreds of analysts that are predicting which cities are growing and where the high-paying jobs are going to be in the future, along with other analytical factors that they consistently monitor. You see, most, if not all, people buy houses when they actually need to move somewhere. But institutional investors buy houses several years before a bunch of people need to move into a given area. As an example, let's take a look at a company called Invitation Homes. They are a $21 billion publicly traded company that was spun off from private equity firm Blackstone. Now, according to one of their recent SEC disclosures, Invitation Homes' portfolio of homes is worth a total of $16 billion, and the company collects about $1.9 billion in rent per year. Ladies and gentlemen, $1.9 billion in annual rent for a $16 billion real estate portfolio means it takes only about 8 years of rental payments to pay back a typical house that Invitation Homes has bought. I could probably do a whole video on this topic, and I probably will, but for the sake of this video and for the sake of time, rental property demand is another reason the real estate market will not crash anytime soon. The fourth reason the housing market won't crash is simply because there has been a major lifestyle and behavioral shift in the United States, mainly due to the pandemic. And this lifestyle and behavioral shift isn't changing anytime soon. When the pandemic hit, people were forced to stay inside of their homes and more people started working from home. This, along with other factors, created a strong demand for single-family homes that hasn't been seen in years. We saw a mass exodus from big cities as more and more people desired to live in the suburbs. The fact is that the pandemic reduced the value of urban amenities. I mean, the reason people live in the city is to be close to restaurants and bars and museums and stadiums. And with everything being closed, people didn't hesitate heading for the exits. People needed and wanted space. People realized that if they're going to work from home, they need an adequate home office. People realize that if they can't go to the gym or take their kids to the park, they need a garage to create a gym, and they need a backyard so that their kids have a place to play. A June 2020 National Bureau of Economic Research paper written by researchers from the University of Chicago estimated that 37% of jobs can be performed entirely remotely. Now, during the pandemic, many of those same jobs are now remote, contributing to this massive lifestyle and behavioral shift that I think is here for the long term, and another reason that the housing market isn't going to crash anytime soon. The fifth reason that the housing market isn't going to crash anytime soon is simply a supply and demand issue. Now, in a recent interview, Daryl Fairweather, Redfin's chief economist, told Vox that she believes the increase in home values is mostly a demand story. People are scrambling to take advantage of plummeting mortgage rates that make the cost of buying a home much cheaper. To understand the impact of mortgage rates, let's say that you bought a $300,000 house a year or more ago before the COVID-19 pandemic hit the United States. Now, if you locked in a 3.73% mortgage rate, you'd end up paying $498,940 over 30 years. Now, if you bought it in 2020 at the low of 2.67%, you'd pay $436,337 for that same home, which is a saving of more than $60,000. Furthermore, millennials, America's biggest generation ever, are moving into their prime home buying years, and they want homes. The problem is that there just aren't enough to go around. But this supply crisis isn't anything new. According to Daryl Fairweather, Redfin's chief economist, even going into the pandemic, there was a shortage of homes. From 2010 to 2019, we had the lowest amount of homes built than any decade since the 1960s. So this supply and demand problem was here even before COVID-19 hit, but COVID-19 made things even worse. Now, anytime there's a major event like a financial downturn or a pandemic, or in this case, both happening at the same time, people are just going to be reluctant to make any big changes due to the uncertainty in their lives. And that's what we're seeing with the baby boomer generation, that they're just holding on to their homes for as long as they can. There are also some other factors that are contributing to the supply shortage in single-family homes. And the more I've been reading on this topic, the more I realize that there is a lot of bureaucracy across this nation in terms of regulations at the local level that artificially restrict the amount of housing that can be built. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds on this topic, but my point is that there is a supply problem, and until the supply shortage of housing persists, real estate values aren't crashing anytime soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'm going to call it a video. As with all of my videos, I try to keep them short and to the point and jam-packed with reliable research. Now, if you could do me a quick favor and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel, it would be greatly appreciated. It allows me and inspires me to continue making valuable content like this. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.